problem is a joke, all right? Nothing more than a joke. So what needs to be done? What I will say, Ethiopia needs to be a normal economy. Its weight has to shift rightwards, a normal curve, which is equivalent to the one in the upper diagram. And Ethiopia's average wage, A1, will be about the same with its neighbors, Kenya and Egypt and Sudan. And then, and only then, Ethiopia can have a minimum wage, a sensible minimum wage, which again is a minimum wage of the rest of the country, the rest of the world. Okay. What can be done about it? How do we finance wage reform? Officials say Ethiopia is a poor country. It cannot afford to increase all wages. I argue back. Actually, what Ethiopia cannot afford is to stay with the current pattern. Ethiopia can afford that's the worst case scenario. Any reform, any transformation is painful. But instead of living with a cancer, one has to get the operation and done away with it. So, but in any case, what is standing in the way of government transforming Ethiopia's wage and make Ethiopia a normal country where normal wage is paid? Let's look at some of the parts. Only 10% of Ethiopia's workforce is wage earning. The rest is self-employed. And much of it is in the public sector. So it's advantageous to deal with it when the proportion of the workforce is as low as it is now, instead of waiting later on when the workforce earning that low wage is 30% or so on and so forth. So I did some kind of back-of-envelope calculations, not model-based or anything, starting purely from this workforce and proportion employed and average wages. Then I ended up with about $3.4 billion worth. If the government is committed to transform wage, both public and private, and subsidize the private sector for a 1-year period, the total cost will be $3.4 billion. And $3.4 billion has been spent on a number of luxury projects. So it's worth it, is my recommendation. Now, the second is idiosyncratic feature, and I will spend less on this one as I promised at the beginning. It's about center-periphery relationship, and it's about inequalities. Now, we talked about low wages, about inequalities between people, interpersonal income distribution. But center-periphery is about a sort of a variety of interregional imbalance, when the center and the periphery are in completely different. Now, rank size distribution, Professor Abgaba talked about earlier, and much of the story is told already. I'll just talk about very specific issue about this, something very unique, the way center-periphery exists in Ethiopia. As much as our wage is unique, our urban structure is one of the most strange and lopsided one. We have what we call mega-city dominance in urban hierarchy. Market forces encourage the work in favor of agglomeration. Public policy is always about reducing agglomeration, working against market forces. So there's always this tug of war between public policy and agglomeration or market forces. It's only then that we have a healthy urban structure or regional development pattern. It seems in the Ethiopian case, actually, public policy and market forces work hand in hand, as if the government adding fuel to an already raging fire. So there is something, a major, an indicator I chose to illustrate the issue is something called Zim's law. Those of you who study urban economics would know. This law says the population of the city on top, the mega city, Addis Ababa, is expected to have 2 times the size of the population of the second largest city, 3 times the size of the population of the third largest city, and 4 times that of the fourth largest. In most economies, city size rank distributions don't exactly fit into this stylized thing. but more or less they fall into that pattern. Here we have Ethiopia taking Addis Ababa against Adama, whose population size Addis Ababa is 10 times that of Adama. Look, I went into database everywhere and scratched my head, and no country I could come up with in Africa, or for that matter in the rest of the world, which has that level of abnormal ratio where everything happens in the megacity. What's the problem with having this kind of pattern? It takes all the resources to work itself. It becomes a vacuum cleaner which sucks resources away from everywhere else to harvest itself. This is the latest data I could find about electricity generation in Ethiopia. 59% of total electricity generated and distributed in Ethiopia goes to Addis Ababa, which has only 5% of Ethiopia's population. And the rest of Ethiopia, and the rest of the cities buying the Jimma, the Redwa share, including the vast rural areas, small towns, share the remaining 40%. So it's an extraordinary situation. Now, I leave that one. And now the urban-rural relationships. Another very strange and peculiar stuff in the Ethiopian economy, which needs to be addressed. Professor Ayele has said it so beautifully. Only nice words, fluffy words are reserved for rural areas. All governments commit themselves and swear in the name of rural economy, but do nothing. Okay, so EPRDF started something called ALDI, and then let me move on to the next one. Economic development requires two things concurrently happening: growth and transformation. So both are explained, and you guys will get it. And structural transformation combines the two. In Ethiopia, I plotted 1981 to 2017, and comparing the changes in the structure of the economy, share of the sectors, industry, including construction, manufacturing, agriculture. Okay? Now, industry is stuck more or less at the same level for the last 40 years, except the last few years where, because of construction boom, it peaked to 20%. Manufacturing, the same share as in 1981. In real terms, nothing happened. What happened? Big thing happened. Agriculture's share fell from 63% to 33%. Service, but the issue is, what kind of service do we have? Is it economic services? No. Much of it is public administration. So what do we have? It is a very shallow structural transformation and premature deindustrialization. So we move to service before we do anything about industrialization. So this is my last slide, and this is what I call cost price squeeze, how the rural economy is suffering. They cannot control their costs because of imbalances in the market structure, powerful importers of inputs, and the cost of input fertilizer rising year on year outside the control of the farmers. Few people say to millions of people, you know what happens, oligopoly we call it in economics. And then buyers, exporters, few in number, buying from large numbers of producers, they set prices, so their cost rises, their output price is always depressed, so the farmers are sandwiched in between these. So, yeah, that's the final slide, as I say. Structural imbalances, these three things are what I want to draw your attention to, and hopefully that of the government, unless these awarenesses, minimum wage recognized but misdiagnosed, urban-rural relationship, there is partial awareness, but talked about in terms of agriculture, not so much in terms of urban bars. Center periphery is a total blackout, and nobody even talks about it, and government doesn't seem to be aware of it. So programs and development programs, economic policies need to be designed in such a way that they will have some positive contribution to these strange imbalances. And these are most of the thoughts I explained, and many of them are not captured in this book I published recently. And I just highlighted some of the issues. So hopefully you'll pick, if you're interested, pick a copy. It's available outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayele. He touches catchy phrases like economic injustice, which is manifested in the form of low wages, high inequality, and other inequitable distribution of resources. And also there are also other injustice like social injustice, political injustice. These economic injustice, political injustice, social injustice, they all lead to what we call marginalization. And this leads to what we call conflict and instability. Now, that said, we have four distinguished presenters. They shared their views. They shared their forward perspectives. Please give them a round of applause for this. I think I'm done my job, so I hand over the mic to the program manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I thank all the participants, distinguished speakers. You may take your seat. Thank you very much. One round of applause, please. So I thank again all the keynote speakers. Thank you, Dr. Tardella, for the time management and the moderation job. According to our program, we'll be moving to coffee break. We'll be out for 15 minutes. The location of the coffee break is out on the foyer. I also have some announcements. Please take care of your belongings, bags, mobile phones, laptops. Please carry it with you.